Welcome to Wiki Bros. I'm Justin,
This is Kyle.
and this is a show with a couple of guys exploring various Wikipedia articles. So we left you on the last episode dealing with the Salem Witch Trials, where we just had a couple of people arrested. So we're going to get into a little bit more of these arrests here.
Now, the first two that were arrested, what were their names again?
So you had, the first three.
Sarah Good?
Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and then Tituba.
Oh, that's right. Right.
Right.
That was the slave.
And then after that, you had Martha Corey,
Mm-hmm.
remember? And then they talked to Dorothy Good.
Right.
And then Rebecca Nurse was arrested.
Right.
And then Rachel Clinton.
It's already starting to spiral.
Yes, sir. So basically, they had, the initial examinations included physical exams.
Right.
They checked them over for unique markings, such as moles, birthmarks, whatever that they.
What, they think they're going to have the sign of the beast on them or something?
Yeah, basically, they believe them to be associated with the devil's influence.
Okay.
And they thought that those markings represented the devil drinking the accused women's blood.
So they're aware, like, everybody's got a birthmark, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. At least it's going to play into their favor when they want to arrest somebody.
Oh, exactly.
So we're into April of 1692 now. Sarah Cloyce and Elizabeth Proctor are arrested. Now, Sarah Cloyce is Nurse's sister. Okay, the Rebecca Nurse who was just arrested.
Right.
This is her sister.
So was she arrested for what, she stand up for her sister?
Well,
or?
no, just they just say that she's a witch.
Oh, the whole family, huh?
Mm-hmm. And we're going to see this a lot, okay? Elizabeth Proctor is another one who's arrested, and they're brought before members of the governor's council. And during the proceedings, right, Elizabeth's husband, John, he, has objections over this, right?
No, obviously.
And they arrest him.
Oh, so you can't even object or stand up for your family. That's great.
Within a week, the following were arrested. Giles Corey, which is Martha's husband, and he's a covenanted church member in Salem town.
Man.
Abigail Hobbs, Deliverance Hobbs, which is Abigail's stepmother, Bridget Bishop, and Mary Warren, who was a servant in the Proctor household.
I love some of the names back then.
Mm-hmm.
They had Deliverance and then
Proctor.
That's
Increase.
The last name, was the other
yeah,
good?
Increase.
I would never thought of Increase as a name.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's pretty rad, actually. I like it.
Just pick random words and start naming kids.
I don't know if I would ever name anyone Deliverance after Deliverance, but
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they kind of ruined it with that movie.
So
look at you making a movie reference.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's your job.
That's right.
So Abigail Hobbs, Mary Warren, and Deliverance Hobbs all confessed and began naming additional people as accomplices.
So let's put this in perspective. They confessed due to being tortured, probably, right?
I'm sure they definitely, or at least thinking that if they confessed, they're going to be able to resume their normal life again.
I love how this is like a common theme with cops, how this just rolls over, because they do this with drug dealers too.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll arrest you and they're like, hey, if you just, give us some names.
Right. So more arrests follow. Sarah Wilds.
There's a lot of Sarahs.
Mm-hmm. William Hobbs, which is Deliverance's husband.
Okay.
And the father of Abigail, right?
Right.
Nehemiah Abbott Jr., Mary Easty, who is the sister of Cloyce and Nurse. Okay.
All right.
Edward Bishop Jr., Sarah Bishop, which is Edward's wife, and Mary English.
They're just taking out all the families.
Oh, man, they're getting into it. But now, April 30th, the following are arrested this day. Remember George Burroughs?
Was that wasn't it the minister?
Yeah, the second minister of Salem Village. Yep.
That's the one that left over not getting paid, right?
Yep.
Oh.
Bam, he's a witch.
Man, that's why they didn't pay you. We knew it.
Yeah. they got him, Lydia Dustin, Susanna Martin, Dorcas Hoare.
Dorcas?
Yeah,
That poor kid. That poor kid. Why would you name your kid that?
Dorcas. Well, I'm sure there probably wasn't like Dork or anything didn't really exist then.
Well,
And
it did after they named their kid
well,
Dorcas.
maybe she started it. Maybe she
Could
was
have
a
been.
big dork.
Could have been.
Sarah Morey and Philip English, who is Mary's husband.
Man.
Now, keep in mind, this is a decent sized area here now, right?
Right.
Man, oh man, are they going after relatives? I mean, it's insane. They're like
You're all in cahoots. We're just taking you all down.
crazy.
One of you's a witch. You're all witches.
So now Nehemiah, he was released because the accusers agreed he was not the person whose specter had afflicted them, right?
Okay.
Mary Easty was released for a few days after her initial arrest because the accusers failed to confirm that it was her that afflicted them.
Right.
But then she was rearrested when the accusers reconsidered. So that's good.
That's real nice.
Yep. So into May of 1692, accusations continued to pour in, but some of the suspects began to evade apprehension. Multiple warrants were issued for John Willard and Elizabeth Colson.
I think at this point, I would have just left. Like,
Yeah, well, they ended up getting them, right? Those two,
right.
but
Well, I mean,
after
it's-
multiple warrants.
I say you can just get up and leave, but it's like if you own land or,
Oh, yeah.
say you're, you can't just go stay with a relative on the other side of the country. They're
Yeah, there is no other side of the
right.
country.
It hasn't been developed yet. So,
So George Jacobs Jr. and Daniel Andrews were not caught yet.
okay.
Sarah Osborne, she's remember she was one of the first three that was accused.
Mm-hmm.
She dies in jail May 10th, 1692. So she hasn't
How
been.
old was she?
Oh, hell, I don't know. I don't have
Doesn't
any
say on
idea.
there.
I don't have
I was
any
curious.
idea.
It says she dies in jail. So I'm wondering if it was from, wounds that they inflicted on her, or if she was just old age.
Could have been just old age is the way I was picturing it, but it just sucks because now she rotted in jail for
Right.
nothing.
Right.
Until this point, though, all the proceedings were investigative, right? But on May 27th, remember William Phipps? Remember he was the guy that Cotton Mather brought over to be the head of this area?
Oh yeah, yeah. Would they have a falling out all of a sudden?
No, he just orders. No, not that way for him. He orders an establishment of a special court for Suffolk, Essex, and Middlesex counties to prosecute the cases of those in jail.
Okay.
Warrants were issued for 36 more people, with examinations continuing to take place in Salem Village. And I'm not going to read through all these names here, but I just want you to understand.
How many are there?
Well, there's 36 on this section, but it's the amount of people that are related to other people that have already been accused.
So they're just trying to take their entire family
I
line
mean,
down at this point.
yes.
Anybody who is remotely family, cousin, anybody.
Yeah. I mean, like you've got George Jacobs Sr., George Jacobs Jr., Margaret Jacobs, Bethiah Carter Sr., Bethiah Carter Jr. I mean, it's crazy.
Man.
Rebecca Jacobs. There's another one she was just, her whole family's in. Her husband is in. Or, I mean, brother, it's crazy the amount of, it just goes on.
Well, and at this point, it's like anytime anybody speaks up to try and defend them,
oh yeah,
they're getting thrown in jail for the same crime. Okay, you're going to defend them. Well, you're a witch too.
Yep. And you know how we talked about the family rivalries and stuff?
Yes.
So wasn't one of the families the Proctors?
Yes.
Okay. So, we've already got some of these Proctors in here.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got Sarah Proctor, who's John and Elizabeth's daughter.
Right.
Bam. She's arrested. Sarah Bassett, sister-in-law of Elizabeth Proctor. Bam. Married to Rich, another sister-in-law of Elizabeth Proctor. I mean, it's crazy. William Proctor, who's their son, he's arrested.
They're really trying to just take the whole family down.
Absolutely. So when the court convened at the end of May, the total number of people in custody at this point is 62 people.
Holy cow.
Cotton Mather.
How big of a town was this?
I don't know. I never looked at that. I would like to look that up. I haven't. But Cotton Mather at this point wrote to one of the judges, John Richards, who's a member of his congregation, expressing his support of the prosecutions, but cautioning him, do not lay more stress on pure spectral evidence than it will bear. It is very certain that the devils have sometimes represented the shapes of persons not only innocent, but also very virtuous. Though I believe that the just God then ordinarily provides a way for the speedy vindication of the persons thus abused. Dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, he's sticking his nose in this again. Basically just saying, oh, you guys are doing great. Keep up the good work.
Keep killing more people. You're selling my book.
Well, at this point, we haven't really killed anybody yet.
Oh,
we got the one
he's just arresting people right now.
Yep.
And torturing them.
So, in June of 1692, the court convened in Salem town with William Stoughton. Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
All right. He's the new lieutenant governor.
Yep.
He's chief magistrate. Thomas Newton as the Crown's attorney prosecuting the case, and Stephen Sewell as the clerk. So Bridget Bishop's case was the first brought to the grand jury, who endorsed all the indictments against her.
Did they get a defense attorney at this point?
I don't know.
Or were they just supposed to get up there and fend for themselves?
I really don't know. That's interesting. I'm not sure.
Because, I mean, they say the word, they have a prosecuting attorney.
Right.
But it would be interesting to find out whether or not at this point they had public defenders or not.
And I know we talked about before on a previous podcast how, back in this time frame, they didn't necessarily have defending counsel.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know. My guess is no.
I mean, it makes it such a one-sided affair. I mean, you're walking into an ambush at that point.
Here, this is Our Lady. Remember Bishop? She was described as not living a Puritan lifestyle.
Yes.
For she wore the black clothing and odd costumes.
Right.
This, along with her immoral lifestyle, affirmed to the jury that Bishop was a witch.
Oh, of course.
She went to trial the same day and was convicted. On June 3rd, the grand jury endorsed indictments against Rebecca Nurse and John Willard, but they did not go to trial immediately for some reason we don't know. But,
so when the first lady got convicted,
mm-hmm.
what was her sentence?
Bishop? That was on June the 1st, right?
Yeah.
June the 2nd, sorry. On June the 10th, she was executed by hanging.
Oh, so pretty much if you get convicted, you're just dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But so I feel like they had like a little second thought on this, because immediately following this execution, the court adjourned for 20 days while it sought the advice of New England's most influential ministers, So they get a response back, from who else but Cotton Mather. Now, this dude writes a whole bunch. But I'm going to read 2 of his points that he writes back, okay?
Okay.
Because later, after all of this goes down, then he basically republishes what he writes, but he excludes these 2 points.
Okay.
He says, the afflicted state of our poor neighbors that are now suffering by molestation from the invisible world, we apprehend so deplorable that we think their condition calls for the utmost help of all persons in their several capacities. He goes on, talks about all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, nevertheless, we cannot but humbly recommend unto the government the speedy and vigorous prosecution of such as have rendered themselves obnoxious according to the direction given in the laws of God and the wholesome statutes of the English nation for the detection of witchcrafts. So, you know what? It was 3 points he took out. The second point, he said, we cannot but with all thankfulness acknowledge the success which the merciful God has given unto the sedulous and assiduous endeavors of our honorable rulers to detect the abominable witchcraft which have been committed in the country, humbly praying that the discovery of those mysterious and mischievous wickedness may be perfected. The rest of the stuff, he's like, he's kind of like talking normal, but
he's really
on
dramatic.
and on these part though, he's like basically like, dude, you guys, in the end, keep up the good work.
Right.
Keep on sentencing these people to death.
Keep on killing.
Yep. So anyway, when he reprinted that letter later, he left out those 3 sections and then just included the rest of it, which makes him sound like a semi-normal individual,
Right.
who wasn't calling for the death of all witches.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. So anyway, we get back to one of these guys that was in prison. We didn't mention his name earlier, but his name was Roger Toothaker. Interesting. Feel bad for that guy. Man, because, they only come up with these names by one way. And, man, Toothache is just the worst.
Toothaker. That's his name?
His name is Roger Toothaker.
Can you imagine how they named him Dorcas? Toothmaker?
Toothaker.
Worst name ever of any human being. I feel like they could have named him Dorcas and it would have been perfect.
So he dies in prison.
Does it say of what?
No.
So they just keep saying they die in prison, but I can't imagine them with as quickly as they're executing these people. I feel like they're doing something that's causing them to die in prison.
Yeah, maybe. Well, but to be fair, they just started executing. So there had been months of people being built up into prisons.
Well, that's my point, though.
So
I mean, was the guy 90, or I
Yeah.
guess in this time he didn't have to be that old to die, but
right. So from June 30th through early July, grand juries endorsed indictments against Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, Elizabeth Proctor, John Proctor, Martha Carrier, Sarah Wilds, and your favorite, Dorcas Hoare.
poor Dorcas.
Yes. So Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, and Sarah Wilds, along with Rebecca Nurse, went to trial at this time, where they were all found guilty.
Of course.
And all 5 women were executed by hanging on July 19th of 1692. So that's fun. And then in August of 1692, the grand juries indicted, a bunch more people, but George Burroughs, Mary Easty, Martha Corey, and George Jacob Sr. Trials convicted Martha Carrier, George Jacob Sr., George Burroughs, and John Willard, Elizabeth Proctor, and John Proctor. Elizabeth Proctor, though, she was given a temporary stay of execution because she was pregnant. So good for her for getting knocked up at the right time.
So you get to have the baby, and then we're going to kill you.
Yeah. And
does that mean the baby's a witch too?
Could be. It's possible. You never know about these witches.
At this point, couldn't it be the spawn of Satan?
It could be the spawn of Satan, but wasn't the spawn of Satan the rooster that laid an egg?
Oh yeah. This is true.
Yeah, that's right. So
that wasn't that didn't complete itself, so they had to start over.
That's right. August 19th, 1692. Martha Carrier, George Jacob Sr., George Burroughs, you remember the Reverend George Burroughs?
Yes.
John Willard and John Proctor are executed. So this is kind of neat, though. It says Mr. Burroughs was carried in a cart with the others through the streets of Salem to the execution. When he was upon the ladder, he made a speech for the clearing of his innocence. His prayer, which he concluded by repeating the Lord's Prayer, was so well worded and uttered with such composedness, as such fervency of spirit, as was very affecting and drew tears from many. So it seemed that some of the spectators would hinder the execution because they were all just so deeply touched by his speech.
Right.
But here comes our good friend Cotton Mather.
Got to straighten them all out, huh?
Yeah, and he's mounted up on his horse, and he's addressing the people, and he's declaring that Burroughs, he's no ordained minister, right?
Right.
And partly to possess the people of his guilt, saying that the devil often had been transformed into the angel of light. And basically the people were like, man, you know what? You're right. sometimes the devil is, a little mischievous and it, takes forms of good people. So the executions went on.
God, this guy's ridiculous.
Yep. So
I hope I don't remember, but I hope in the end that something terrible happens to this guy.
you know what? I don't know. I don't know what happens to him. And I was going to look it
If
up.
there is no
and,
justice at the end of this, it's going to be
man.
very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean this was bad. They like took these people, those 5 people or whatever, and they are like throwing them in this shallow grave. And it's not big enough to even house them. Like parts of their bodies are sticking up above the ground.
God.
Crazy. So on to September of 1692, grand juries indicted 18 more people. They failed to indict William Proctor, who was rearrested on new charges. So that's fun.
Oh.
But check this guy out. September 19th, 1692. Giles Corey. Okay?
Okay.
This man, damn it. He refused to, plea, at the trial.
I mean, what's the point?
Right. You say you're guilty.
Has a single person that's been arrested gotten off?
Well, a couple. But that's it. But he was killed by, and I'm not going to pronounce it, some French sounding name, but basically it was a form of torture where they basically put a shit ton of stones on top of this guy, crushing him.
Holy cow.
Yeah, because they're thinking that would convince him to finally say he's guilty or
Trying to get him to confess.
Nope. Killed him. Killed him.
Imagine that. That's kind of like the, I'm curious if this actually ever comes up in this, but you always see it in like the movies and stories where it's like, okay, we're going to throw you in the river with some rocks. If you survive, you're a witch.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you're not a witch.
Yep. 4 more pled guilty and 11 others were tried and found guilty. On September 22nd of 1692, 8 more people were executed. Dorcas Hoare, though, she was given a temporary reprieve with the support of several ministers.
Thank God.
To make a confession of being a witch.
They saved Dorcas?
Yeah, but they're making her confess to being a witch,
Oh, wait. This is a girl?
Yeah.
Oh, I just assumed Dorcas was a guy's name.
Oh, well.
I would never thought that Dorcas would be a girl's name. But it says she?
No, you know what? It doesn't. Maybe it is a guy.
I mean, it sounds like a guy.
I
don't know why, but like Dorcas sounds like a masculine name.
I thought it sounded like Dorothy. No. In fact, I think I'm almost positive. Gosh, was it this case or something else that I read about where at some points they called her, I'm pretty sure it was this one. Some points they called her Dorcas, and another one they called her Dorothy. So it was the same person.
See, I think of Marcus, Dorcas, Marcus.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's how I kind of get there. But
yeah,
I mean, I can see where you could get Dorothy to Dorcas too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that her name was Dorcas, but at one of these things where they drew up the papers on her, they referred to her as Dorothy, and it was just a mistake, which historians have, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was this one. Okay. Otherwise, I've read about another Dorcas somewhere.
Okay.
They've,
more than one person had that name.
Yeah. So basically, then Mary Bradbury, she's 77 years old. She manages to escape with the help of her family and friends. And Abigail Faulkner Sr. was pregnant and given temporary reprieve. Now, how about that? You don't very often hear of a woman with a junior senior. Right?
Yeah. No, it's
and when I read that, I was like, I think that's the first time in my life I've ever seen that. Abigail Faulkner Sr.
That's you don't really ever hear of that these days at all.
Or ever. Even
I don't know that I've ever even heard of. But I mean, it makes sense. Like, why would it be just the guy?
Yeah, exactly. But it's so weird.
Like, you name it after the mom, it could easily be a senior, junior situation. But I don't know. That's odd.
So, Cotton Mather, he completes his account of the trials, which entitled Wonders of the Invisible World, and he gives it to Phipps when he returns from fighting in Maine in early of October. Both Phipps's letter and Mather's manuscript, I guess they must have gone to London by the same ship in mid-October.
Okay.
But Phipps, who's been away, is now back and in the heart of all this. And this is what he has to say about it. He says, I hereby declare that as soon as I came from fighting and understood what danger some of the innocent subjects might be exposed to if the evidence of the afflicted persons only did prevail, either to the committing or trying any of them, I did, before any application was made unto me about it, put a stop to the proceedings of the court, and they are now stopped till their majesty's pleasure be known. And so he's sending this off to England, saying, like, dude, I didn't know all this was going on. I
Right.
come back from fighting, I discover all this is going on, I stop it, right?
Is he? They're gonna make him a witch now?
Well, on October 29th, Judge Sewell dismissed the court. Perhaps by coincidence, Governor Phipps's own wife was among those who had been called out upon around this time. So he gets back, finds out his wife has, been accused of being a witch, and he's like, "Wait, we're stopping this shit."
Is he successful?
Yeah, I mean, they stopped it at that point, right?
Okay.
But in January of 1693, the new Superior Court convened in Salem. The first 5 cases tried were of the 5 people who had been indicted but not tried in September. That was Sarah Buckley, Margaret Jacobs, Rebecca Jacobs, Mary Whitridge, and Job Tukey, and all were found not guilty. Charges were dismissed against many, but 16 more people were indicted and tried, 3 of whom were found guilty. And let's see, it was Elizabeth Johnson Jr., Sarah Wardwell, and Mary Post. But when Staunton wrote the warrants for the execution of these 3 and others remaining from the previous court, Governor Phipps issued pardons, sparing their lives. So he is stepping in and doing the right thing finally.
Okay.
In late January to early February, the court sat again in Charleston and held grand juries and tried 5 people. And these were people we know: Sarah Cole, Lydia Dustin, Sarah Dustin, Mary Taylor, and Mary Toothaker. All were found not guilty, but they're not released until they paid their jail fees. What the fuck is that? Like,
so you got falsely accused, you got acquitted, but yet you still got to pay the jail. You know what? That's pretty much what still happens these days.
dude, this is insane. Like, how the hell does that go about happening? Like, we've kept you in
Oh my God.
in jail here for months,
Court system at its best.
and for some reason there's fees that you have to pay. I have no idea what these fees are, but you're not getting out until
Well, Justin,
you pay them.
they don't get room and board for free.
Well,
I mean, these days you do, but
Lydia Dustin, who was just, found innocent, but she's still sitting in jail.
Right.
She dies in jail.
oh, see, why is everybody dying?
March 10th of 1693.
These must be some like really, really
Well,
horrible jail conditions.
Probably is.
I mean, the problem is like all their families in jail, so it's hard to get people to even like be able to bail you out because I can't imagine what their jail fees and fines are.
Yes, I know.
Because nobody's been working, so how could you even afford it?
When their entire families are in there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There's nobody to help anybody out.
It's crazy. April 1693, the court convenes and clears Captain John Alden. In May of 1693, the court convenes and held a variety of grand juries, dismissed charges against all but 5 people. And when they went to trial, all were found not guilty, finally putting an end to the series of trials and executions. So in the end, we got 4 execution dates, okay?
Okay.
June 10th, I'm going to read these if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
June 10th, 1692, Bridget Bishop. July 19th, 1692, Sarah Good, Rebecca Nurse, Susanna Martin, Elizabeth Howe, Sarah Wilds. August 19th of 1692, Martha Carrier, John Willard, George Burroughs, George Jacob Sr., John Proctor. September 22nd, 1692, Mary Easty, Martha Corey, Anne Puditer, Samuel Wardwell, Mary Parker, Alice Parker, Wilmot Red, Margaret Scott. Several others, including Elizabeth Bassett Proctor and Abigail Faulkner, remember, were convicted but given reprieves because they were
Right.
pregnant.
Right.
And then there were 5 other women that were convicted in 1692, but death sentence was never carried out.
Gotcha.
And that included Dorcas Hoare. Oh, see, it says women, and so she was a woman.
Okay. I still think it sounds like a man's name, but all right.
Feel good about that. And then you remember you had Giles Corey, who was crushed to death for not entering the plea.
Right, for the stones. Right.
Yep. So December 17th, 1696, the General Court ruled that there would be a fast day on January 14th, 1697, referring to the late tragedy raised among us by Satan and his instruments. On that day, Samuel Sewell asked Reverend Samuel Willard to read aloud his apology to the congregation of Boston's South Church to take the blame and shame of the late commission of the court at Salem. Thomas Fisk and 11 other trial jurors also asked forgiveness.
Wow.
Although the last trial was held in May of 1693, public response to the events continued. In decades following the trial, survivors and family members and their supporters sought to establish the innocence of the individuals who were convicted.
So basically, the perpetrators of this got nothing.
Yes.
They literally said, "Oh, my bad," and that was the end of it.
Yes.
Wow.
It's
They killed how many people?
It ended up being, gosh, what was the number again? 30 people. I think 19 people ended up being 19 people ended up being executed.
Jeez. And what was the time span of this overall?
This is just over the course of a year. It was
In 1 year,
started
they
in
did this.
1692, ended in 1693.
Jeez,
Yep.
that's crazy.
And like I say, this
Just
this
widespread panic all of a sudden.
yeah, and people were just. I mean, I think some people were probably scared, and
Yeah.
they were thinking like, something weird would happen, and they're like, "Oh shit, that's a witch,"
Well,
And then
I
I
mean,
think
especially when the courtrooms are establishing and making these decisions, like they have factual evidence, and it's like, and this is a very superstitious time in general.
in this area.
Yeah, in this area, so it's like it just creates like a widespread panic, and now everybody's backing it up. And then when you can't even talk up against speak up against the accusations anyway, because the second you do, you get included in them. It's like it had a huge snowball effect.
Yep. It's messed up, man. It's crazy.
I'm disappointed that neither the judges or the cotton guy didn't receive any type of punishment. Like the judge is still presiding. Like you would have thought he would have been removed from his position at this point.
Yeah, and maybe something happened. I just don't have any information on it, but I really hope that Cotton Mather, like, I don't know, maybe did you think they had orange juice then? You think orange juice was a thing that they had up? I would say probably not. Not up in New England.
Probably not there.
Damn it. Anyway, I need some sort of citrus. That way he can like have his throat cut open and then
Put
drink.
salt in there.
Yeah, oh yeah, salt would work too. Just throw a bunch of salt down his throat. What a piece of shit.
I think they just stone him.
I mean, but that's the thing. That's more of what we were talking about the other day about religion getting involved in government.
Right.
Like it's something else that does not.
Well, this was further than religion though. Like the cotton guy was pushing an agenda,
that had basically been
already shot down
yes.
in an area that he was from. So he was taking advantage of the situation and like shoving his book in people's faces and saying, "Read this," knowing that this had already happened over in Europe and had been deemed, that this was false.
Right.
And he kept pushing this agenda. I really don't understand what he was doing, and other than trying to sell books at this point. Like, what's your motive here, man? Like, you're getting innocent people killed, and then he continued to like push this when he came back. Like the one guy sounded like he was the pastor sounded like he was going to get off, and then he shows up and straightens the crowd out to let them know that he's just putting on a good show because he's the devil.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like he wanted these people dead.
Yeah.
Like I can't fathom the rationality behind that.
He's a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, there's that.
That's what it is. Yep. That's my take on it.
Hmm.
So check this out, though.
What's up?
So they basically had events in Salem and Danvers
Okay.
in 1992 for 300 years, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But on November of 2001, the Massachusetts legislature passed an act exonerating all who had been convicted and naming each of them innocent,
Oh.
with the exception of Elizabeth Johnson.
Why didn't she get off?
It was a mistake. They missed her somehow. And so there was a group of school children who discovered this. In May 26th of this year, she was cleared by the Massachusetts Senate.
Wow. Hey,
So,
good job, school
yeah,
kids. I'm
absolutely.
impressed.
That's pretty freaking cool.
That'd be an awesome school project. Say you got something accomplished like
Yeah,
that.
because, I'm sure, especially in that area, they probably talk about this more than we do here.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Well, it's urban folklore at that point in time. That's probably huge in their area, especially if they're having celebrations every year. Wow.
yeah. Well, they've
I guess at this point it has to be a celebration, right?
Yeah.
Like it's something that's so long ago, but
yeah, it's pretty neat though. I'm glad that they all got cleared finally. I mean,
Right.
for whatever that means. They
You
still died.
there had to have been some like long lasting effects on their families that did survive. Like your family members have been murdered.
Yeah, because
some of them still probably live in the area. Which something like this with them, even 300 years later, if there's any descendants in the area, like to have that stigma hanging over your family's head for that period of time, it probably would have been nice for them if they stayed. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if I was living there and that had happened, I would do everything I could to sell everything I have and move out of the area as quickly as possible.
You know what I would do?
What's that?
I would dress up as a witch and I would go around and kill all these people.
Oh, yeah.
That, called me out for being a witch.
Vigilante justice. Let's do it. Yep. I mean, who could blame him at this point?
Yeah.
Cotton would have at least should have got it.
Dude, Cotton should have. He's a piece of shit. Yeah. Have I mentioned that?
That's like your favorite phrase. You just need a shirt that says
Gosh.
He's a piece of shit.
Well, he is. I mean, come on. So anyway, but I'm really happy that they went through and found, all of the history on this to get all of these people and clear their name.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think that maybe we can look into it a little bit. I mean, obviously it's not going to be an episode or anything, but I would like to know if anything happened to Cotton Mather out of this.
Probably not.
I'm guessing
probably not a thing. I mean, if the judge didn't get punished for it, I doubt he did it either.
Yep.
He probably moved on to the next town. And I'm like, this is just Salem. Who knows? I'm actually curious what happened to him because it's like, did he move to another town and then try?
Well, he was in
BS all over
I
again?
don't even think that he wasn't like in Salem. I don't believe.
He was in England, wasn't he?
Well, no, he was over here. So it was Increase Mather, his dad.
Okay, yeah. This is the son.
Yeah, this is the son who also wrote the book on witchcraft.
Right. So they both wrote a book.
Yeah, but he was over here, but I think he was just in the area. I don't think he was necessarily in Salem.
Oh, okay.
But he was in one of the nearby villages or something. Actually, I think he was in Boston.
Okay, so makes sense.
So anyway, but that's our little story on Salem. I mean, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. I learned a lot more than what I ever learned in high school.
Oh yeah.
And it was just kind of interesting, all the things that led up to it. That just like, man, if it didn't do that, man.
It just shows you the effect of mass hysteria can have. I mean, imagine if this was like a bigger area and this went through, like how many people would have died if this affected like a larger area all of a sudden. I'd be curious to see how many deaths were recorded in Europe before when this went through, just to see comparison wise on how long it lasted, and how many deaths compared to what happened in Salem.
My guess is purely a guess, but I would think that they probably don't have as detailed historical record of.
I mean, you're talking like 14. You said the 15th century, so I mean
14th, 1600s. They're
very, very unlikely. The only reason the Salem one is even as noted as it is
it was early into the New World.
Yeah, and better recordings over here, I suppose. But maybe just because this, it got the hysteria was so immediate with it.
Yeah. Yep. So I was thinking that maybe we could do some episodes looking into some of these people that were freed by the Innocence Project.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a pretty neat thing, you know. I think they've cleared like, I don't even know. I'm not even going to throw out a number. A pretty decent amount of people over the years that have gotten cleared through DNA
Right.
that were wrongfully imprisoned. And so coming off of this with these people being wrongfully imprisoned, I thought, man, that might be kind of interesting to dig into a few of these. You know, one of them was they had a Netflix show on this. I didn't watch it, but it was The Making of a Murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think I've seen it.
So
on there.
that was one of these guys that was cleared by the Innocence Project. But then he killed somebody, I guess, maybe. I don't really know.
After he was cleared?
Yeah. Like he was
sound
cleared.
Like he was cleared then.
I just briefly caught sight of it that I believe he was, because I didn't watch the show, but I think he was convicted of rape.
Okay.
And then when he got cleared, he ended up killing somebody.
Was it the person he raped?
No, I don't think so. But he didn't rape anybody.
Oh, right. He got cleared.
So I don't really know. But anyway, I thought we could go through a few of those. That might be kind of fun.
Could be kind of cool.
So that's all I've got. You got anything else?
No, looking forward to the next episode.
All right.
We'll do a newscast.
Yeah, we'll try and get another newscast out, and we'll get into some of that.
Sounds good.
All right. So remember, what you're going to do, you're going to follow us on TikTok, on YouTube, and anywhere you get your podcast. Hit the like, follow, subscribe button, share it with a friend. And remember, Wikipedia runs on donations, so would you consider giving a couple bucks? For Wiki Bros, I'm Justin.
This is Kyle.
We'll see you soon.